Good evening and welcome to another fine episode of Bleak, where we are going to discuss the murders of Bart and Krista Halderson out of Dane County, Wisconsin. Buckle up, folks. It's about to get bleak.
Hello, everybody. Laura's back in the house.
Woo woo!
Get a
Can I get an amen? No, I'm just
filled
kidding.
episode with Laura involved. So tonight, it's actually the evening, we are going to discuss a murder, or it's actually two victims.
Double.
And it's a case of
double.
parricide, which is not something we've really gotten into before.
Right.
It's not a common thing where, if you don't know what parricide is, it's when a child or children murder their parent.
Yes.
Or in this case, parents.
Right.
So it's not, it is a bleak topic.
It is extremely bleak, and it's something that we don't wish on anybody. I mean, it's horrible. It's terrible.
And this,
sad.
So murder is never, there's never really truly a justification for murder, except for maybe like your life is at stake in your self-defense.
Right.
But beyond that, this is one of those that, like, it was so, and obviously we're going to get into it, but the reason that he ended up doing this to his parents is so unnecessary.
Right.
Like, it just didn't need to happen in any way.
Right.
Like, he did this kind of as a solution to a problem.
Right.
That it didn't end up solving anything, and he just, you just end up getting, go to jail for the, so it's like...
the rest of your life, yeah.
Exactly. So anyhow, that's kind of what drew me to this case, is just the unnecessariness of it, and we have never done a case with two victims, so... So anyhow, we're talking about Bart and Krista Halderson. They were a married couple out of Wisconsin. They were 50 and 53. Bart was actually younger than Krista.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the parents of two sons. They had a son, Chandler, who was 24, and then a son, Mitchell, who was 23.
Yes.
And at the time of this incident, Chandler was living at home with his parents, and Mitchell was out on his own. Mitchell had an IT degree, and he was living with his fiancée. And these events took place between July 1st and July 8th of 2021. So this is a very recent case.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I'm going to start. So on July 7th, 2021, Chandler Halderson, so that's the son of Bart and Krista Halderson, walks into the sheriff's office to file a missing persons report. So Chandler tells deputies that his parents had not returned home from the family cabin. According to Chandler, the cabin that they would go to was a couple hours north of their home, which they lived in a town called Windsor, Wisconsin, and it's near Madison. It's actually it's south central Wisconsin, so it's way down south and right in the middle of the state. And Chandler tells investigators he helped his parents pack their vehicles before they left for this trip to the cabin. Mm-hmm. And something kind of odd, he tells investigators he helped his parents pack several bottles of liquor, lots of cash, tools, and silver bars.
That is definitely red flag material right there.
Well,
you're thinking,
you come to find
what
out,
were these people going to be doing
right
at the cabin?
Well,
exactly.
I think that kind of was his point.
His intention, yeah.
Because you find out later his parents really didn't drink alcohol.
Right.
So why are they packing loads of liquor?
A bunch of liquor, yeah.
And then he says his parents left in an unknown car with an unknown couple. So they just...
I'm sorry, just bye. You helped us pack all these silver bars and this liquor, and now goodbye. I mean, it would just
the story is not great.
It's an odd story. It's like, of all stories you could.
And it's like, yeah, he had to have actually thought that through. Like, okay, what am I going to tell the police?
It's either
here?
so bizarre that it either has to be true.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
I mean, or it has to be completely one of the worst,
It sounds absurd.
It does.
And I think it might not sound that absurd until you start talking to their friends who are like,
right.
I had heard that Chandler tried to make it seem like they were these big gamblers.
Yeah.
And their friends were like, they didn't gamble at all.
Right.
So it's like,
right.
kind of not meshing with what other people are saying.
Right.
So anyhow, he left. He says the parents leave in this unknown vehicle with this unknown couple. So they're just some random strangers. Like, well, you didn't ask your parents, like,
right?
Who's picking you up? Like, why are you
these people?
Why aren't you driving yourselves to our cabin? This
right.
is weird, But
right.
he just didn't ask. He
was like, okay, bye.
See you later. I get the house to myself.
Yeah.
So then Chandler tells police his mom texted him, quote, made it safely. Can't get anything through. It's packed. Going to White Lake today for that parade. We will be home Monday night or Tuesday morning. Love you lots. So this text message did come. He did receive this message. There was proof, that message was received from his mother's phone. Something that is a little strange about this message, you can see that her saying can't get anything through, to me, indicates she's trying to say, like, we're not getting good service up here.
Right.
Which is convenient if you think about what's going on now.
Right.
With the situation with them being missing.
Right.
But she gives some information about what they're going to be doing. This is 4th of July weekend, by the way. So that parade is some kind of 4th of July parade is what she's referring to. And then she, gives an estimate of when they're going to be home. So, I mean, not out of the question, but apparently saying that they didn't get service up there, I don't think that was necessarily an issue that other people reported having at that cabin. So it was a little strange that she would be saying that she can't. And she obviously thought she could get that message through.
Right.
So it's a little weird.
That is sad.
So the sheriffs, after they talk with the son who's reporting them missing, they start to talk with Bart and Krista's coworkers. They were both, full-time employees. And they all the coworkers said Bart and Krista were never no-shows for work. They would either call in sick or, request time off in advance. And
like normal people. Like most people.
Look, like a normal person, I wrote. Which is so funny. You hear this all the time in true crime cases about, like, they would have called. It's like, well, of course they would have at least called in because they would be fired. You can't just do no-call, no-shows for work.
No, you can't.
I've never been in a job. I've had many jobs in my life. And I've never had a job where no-call, no-show was like, oh, well, Lily just does that. She just
here and there.
Yeah, she just sometimes doesn't call or show up. It's no big thing.
Yeah. Let it slide.
So, like, that person wouldn't be working here anymore. That's why I always think it's so funny. They were like, they were very responsible people. Well, it's like, well, by nature of having a job,
most people,
you have to show up.
You have to either show up, request time off.
Yeah.
Or call in sick. I mean, those are the three options.
Right. So I always just think that's funny that people act like it's an option to just not show up for work.
Yeah, that is funny.
So investigators were suspicious pretty quickly of Chandler Halderson's story, just based on some of the red flags coming up in his interviews, and after when they were asking him questions. So they asked Chandler about himself, and Chandler tells them he was about to graduate college with an IT degree.
Mm-hmm.
He says he's working from home he still lives with his parents, for an insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
He says he's just gotten a job for the company SpaceX in Titusville, Florida, and he has plans to move to Florida with his girlfriend, Kat. Mm-hmm. He says they recently bought a car and found a place to live in Florida.
Yep.
He also tells them he had recently been injured after falling down some stairs.
Oh.
Chandler said he suffered from a head injury as a result of that fall.
When was supposedly this fall?
Well, we'll get into some of that at some point here. But so initially the police were thinking, well, it is possible his parents got into like a car accident.
Yeah.
And they, of course, were trying to figure out, well, who is this mystery couple they went off with?
Right.
Because he's telling them some people...
Couple X.
Well, yeah, and of course, their vehicles were still at the house, so they had to have gotten picked up.
Right.
Or, traveled some way other than their own vehicles at the very least.
Right.
So the brother of Chandler, his name is Mitchell, and his fiance, they lived about 3 hours away. So they came down to meet the detectives at the cabin near Madison, or north of Madison, to see if Bart and Krista were there. Because that's the logical next step. So when they arrived, there was no sign of Bart and Krista, and there's no sign that they had even been there at all.
Okay.
It looked like nobody had been there.
Right.
The grass hadn't been cut. There wasn't food in the fridge.
Right.
It just appeared like it hadn't been used in a while.
Right.
So police start talking to anyone that Chandler had been with that weekend, specifically his girlfriend, Kat.
Yes.
Kat reported she had been with Chandler on and off that entire weekend. Mm-hmm. She had a family farm.
Right.
So they went there for the 4th of July. Chandler wanted to use their pool because he was complaining of having issues with his legs stemming from that concussion from falling down the stairs.
Right.
And he thought that the pool would help his legs. And so the police go to speak with the farm owners, who I didn't find out till later were actually Kat's, I think it's like her mom and stepdad or something like that.
Oh, sure.
And they confirmed that Chandler was there on July 4th with Kat. Right. And then they said he showed up on July 5th.
Okay.
Without having told them in advance that he was coming.
Oh.
So he just kind of showed up there by himself.
Hi.
And he tells them that he just got back from a doctor's appointment and he was really upset because he said he was going to lose his job at SpaceX because the doctor told him he wasn't able to travel and then he would miss the orientation for this new job.
Okay.
So he's upset about that, and then he asks her if he can use the pool. Right. And she says yes.
Yeah.
But she's a little weirded out by this because it's like it's your daughter's boyfriend kind of showing up without your daughter.
Yeah.
And
I'd be a little bit like, huh.
This is weird. So she checks on Chandler after about an hour. Mm-hmm. And she notices Chandler's no longer there and that he hadn't even used the pool because the cover was still on the pool.
Okay.
So she's like, that's real weird.
Right.
And she sees that Chandler's car is parked in a field kind of far away from the pool.
Yeah.
And his car's backed up into the woods with the hatch open.
Oh. Not odd or suspicious.
She decides to go swimming.
Right.
And then she sees Chandler emerge from the woods.
Oh.
She's swimming. So she points out this area to detectives because now,
right,
she's like,
parents are missing.
This is where he emerged from.
Right.
And the investigator looks up at the area that she's pointed out, and all of a sudden a bunch of vultures you can see are over that area.
Oh, creepy.
So police walk about 20 yards into the woods, and under a pile of debris, they find the torso of Bart Halderson.
Just the torso?
Just his torso.
Just like from
just
halfway down,
like,
halfway down.
That's where your torso is. Your like
Right.
abdominal
The
region.
region is just chilling.
Yeah.
And why just the torso? Why
Part
just
of
the
his
torso?
underwear and belt were still on.
Oh, come on.
So bad.
Yeah.
So when the medical examiner arrived and rolled the torso over, there were gunshot wounds to the back. So he had been
Okay.
shot in his back.
They knew he had been shot.
Yeah. So they sent drones up and also cadaver dogs to search the area.
Yeah.
And then detectives find
Why would he just drop off the torso?
We'll find out more. He's kind of dropped off in a lot of different places.
But that's an obvious place. Like, these people, they know
And
you.
they saw you.
Right.
So what, to me, it's like, wouldn't you abandon that plan at that point?
Right.
Like, they saw you emerging from the woods.
Right. You'd be like, oh, I should go take that back.
And you know they live there, so they're going to probably find it eventually.
Right.
It's like he's not, I don't know what his
He's
problem.
not all there or something.
You say that about every... She always says, I wonder if he has some kind of cognitive difficulty. No, that's not a criminal mastermind like they all one seem to be.
No, none of them seem to be criminal masterminds.
I swear I've listened to her episodes and she says that every time.
But you wonder, maybe he really did have a head injury.
Well, we'll find out more about that too. So,
Okay.
They send out the cadaver dogs and all of that, and they end up finding a garbage can in the woods that is filled with a tarp. So there's a garbage can in a tarp,
Okay.
or a tarp in a garbage can, I should say. The tarp has Bart and Krista's blood all over it, and because they obviously tested it.
Right.
And then they find an old oil barrel in the area. Inside are saw blades, hand saws, scissors, and tree loppers.
Oh.
All of these items were tested and came back positive for Bart and Krista's flesh and blood. The farm owner, which is his girlfriend's mom and stepfather, eventually find a rifle in one of the barns on the farm.
Wow.
And so at this point, of course, they bring Chandler in for questioning.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
also simultaneously, they're questioning his girlfriend, Kat,
Right.
as well. So Chandler meets with the police just for about an hour. And he starts trying to, he's kind of trying to pull this whole mystery couple thing, kind of trying to convince the police that, there's these strangers that picked up my parents. And at this point, he doesn't know that they have found these things on the farm.
He's still
he's
making these stories up. Yeah.
Right. So simultaneously, they're interviewing Kat, and she doesn't think Chandler's done anything.
Right.
So she's being completely honest, and maybe
Right.
she would have been anyway, but she's not evasive. She's telling them everything she knows.
Right.
And because she was really close to Bart and Krista, and
Right.
she was worried about the fact that they were missing.
Oh, yeah.
So she provided some pictures that she had taken from that weekend.
Yep.
And she was like, apparently Kat is a big true crime person herself, and she's like, I know you need to rule Chandler out.
Right.
So anything I can do, to help him get ruled out, she's more than happy to do
it. Yeah.
And again, she really did not think Chandler was involved. So Kat meets with the police multiple times, and Kat tells police that on July 3rd, which we find out is about 2 days after they were murdered, Chandler tells Kat he can't hang out with her until later because he had chores to do around the house.
Okay.
So Kat had been suspicious at one point or another that Chandler was cheating on her.
Okay.
He's a pretty good-looking guy, I will give him that.
Right.
And apparently a lot of ladies liked him.
Right.
He was just one of those guys that women...
Cute.
Yeah, cute, young, whatever.
Right.
So one of the things Chandler did in order to make her feel more comfortable was he allowed her to see his Snapchat location.
Oh, sure.
So if she was ever thinking he was being dishonest, she could go and see where he was. Which that's not a sign of an impending great relationship,
No,
but
it's not. But
it's neither here nor there.
Right.
And the reason that this is pertinent to this particular case was because she happened to notice a couple days after, so it was July 3rd. She wouldn't have known that was a couple days after the murders, but that's what it ended up being.
Right.
That she was like, yeah, I noticed he was kind of in a weird place, so I took a screenshot of the map because he had said he was going to be somewhere else. And so she said, so at 8:58 a.m. on July 3rd, he had said he's doing chores at home.
Right.
But she's seeing he's on the banks of the Wisconsin River.
Right.
So she's got this Snapchat screenshot.
Right.
That says, like, this is exactly where he was, even though he's telling me he's at home, doing chores or whatever.
Right. He was clearly not.
Right. So police having this map now showing exactly where he was, they again send the drones and the cadaver dogs to search that location. And when they got there, they pretty quickly found some remains of his mother, Krista. Mm-hmm. It was one complete leg, a foot, a thigh, and they were all in separate locations in that area.
Oh.
So there were just body parts kind of strewn about on the banks of the Wisconsin River.
Wow.
And this...
Imagine collecting all that. Being the
it'd
people
be weird.
that have to collect. I mean, they're probably used to it, maybe, but...
Well, I don't know that dismemberment cases are, like, super common.
No, I suppose, especially in that area, maybe they don't get a lot, but I hope they don't, but you know what I mean?
This whole, like, strewing about their body parts all over in weird locations, like... That's only going to increase your chances of getting caught because now you got to man all these separate locations.
Right.
And
instead of having one location, you've got 45 locations.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, there are 206 bones in the human body, so there's a lot of parts.
And a lot of them are pretty identifiable. Like, oh, that's a foot. Oh, that's a
people can
nose.
tell it's not an animal.
Right.
So,
but he was probably hoping the animals would
eat it or not eat it,
kind of
do
more,
or maybe it would decompose more quickly or something.
Right.
So this particular spot on the Wisconsin River is a place that Chandler went frequently. He kind of considered it a secret swimming hole. Mm-hmm. And when they searched Chandler's phone, there was a lot of content on his phone that had been deleted, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them the Google searches were, quote, body found Wisconsin, woman's body found, Wisconsin dismembered body found, dead body found in Wisconsin, dead body found in Milwaukee River. So he was clearly keeping track of if these remains had been found.
Right.
Because he was obviously worried about it.
Yeah. But he increased. I mean,
and he actually was making these searches after they had found the remains, but he was not yet aware that they had been found. Yeah. So they were able to
keep that,
find that information that had been recently deleted on his phone.
Right.
So police were initially thrown off by that text that Chandler had received because the text did come from Krista's phone.
Right.
But when they looked deeper into that text, one of the things they found out that the parade that he mentioned, it actually had already taken place on July 3rd.
Right.
And the text came into him on, I think it was the next day. So they're saying they're going to this parade that didn't even occur on that day.
Right.
So that, because they didn't actually, I think 4th of July fell on like a Sunday or something that year. And so the parade, they didn't do it because they did it either the day before or the day after.
Right.
They didn't actually do it on the 4th of July. So the detectives found that out, and then they were like, maybe she didn't actually send that message.
Right.
And they find Krista's phone eventually in the house, wrapped in tinfoil in a shoe in the garage, along with Krista's license. So they conclude that Chandler sent that text message from his mom's phone to his phone to try to make it look like she was in.
Why would you throw it
at the
in
cabin.
Tinfoil in the? I mean, that's not even a good hiding spot.
The tinfoil thing, I have heard that if you put like a cell phone in like a tinfoil box,
right?
It can't like emit, I don't know if it's the radiation or the signal. But you can actually disable a signal through using tinfoil.
Oh, okay.
So
that's why
I'm sure there's something to do with that.
Yeah.
But even so, it's like they're gonna search your house.
Right.
So it's like,
right. So what is even the point?
Yeah, that's
why would you leave it in the house? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
he did a lot of things that are really baffling.
Yeah.
So police, of course, now they're really strongly suspecting Chandler.
Well, yeah.
They find out that his job as working remotely from his insurance company.
Yeah.
He never worked for an insurance company.
Oh.
He didn't have a job.
Okay.
This job offer from SpaceX.
Yeah.
His impending college degree.
Yeah.
And he also told people he worked on the Wisconsin rescue and diving team.
Oh.
And none of this was true.
Oh. So how do you get money?
Well, I'll get into that.
Okay.
This podcast I was listening to, she said he had a major case of the diabetes.
That's funny.
The diabetes.
So he just
everything was a lie.
But his parents even kind of thought this was real?
So his father, Bart, was an accountant.
Right.
So he starts questioning Chandler about why he never has any money.
Right.
Despite the fact he's working full-time
right.
from home for an insurance company.
Well, yeah.
So initially Chandler's telling his dad that he said, well, I'm on a salary and they accidentally paid me hourly, so they held my paycheck back to fix it. So he's telling him, I think he's asking his dad for money, saying, I'll pay you back when my check gets fixed.
Yeah.
Then he said his direct deposit info was incorrect.
Why not just then go get a job of some kind?
Listen, so then he says that the company owed him so much money that the bank thought the deposit they tried to make was a scam, and they rejected the deposit.
Oh, dear.
So, can you imagine being this kid's parent and being
like, this is so bizarre. Like, you don't know whether to believe it or whether to be like...
So Chandler would send emails to himself pretending to be human resources for his job.
Oh, jeez.
And then he would send emails to his dad as proof of all these mishaps with his paychecks.
Well, you're spending all this time doing that when you could actually have a job.
Right.
I mean, anywhere. Go work at the local McDonald's. Go work at...
somewhere.
That's a great job. I mean, especially in management and whatnot. Go work at the local...
literally anywhere.
Anywhere. I mean, who
just
cares?
to get some money, yeah.
Where you work.
He's not like he has a lot of bills if he's living at home with his parents. He doesn't have kids or anything.
Right.
So they find out these email addresses that are supposedly human resources are just like generic email addresses, and even in one of them, the word resources was misspelled. So he'd get up early in the morning and get on his computer and tell his family he was working, but he was actually playing video games.
Oh. That's why he just wanted to play video games all the time. And
so he played a game frequently with a guy named Andrew who was in the military, and he was stationed in Germany.
Okay.
They became really good online friends.
Oh, sure.
And the reason that's pertinent is because Andrew had come to visit Chandler in person at one point. He stayed at the Chandler's house, which would be his parents' house, for a couple of days. And Andrew was a very big gun enthusiast, and Chandler had mentioned at one point or another that he was really liked a specific kind of rifle.
Okay.
So Andrew gives Chandler a gun as a gift. And when he gave Chandler, because they, of course, his parents, they know, have been shot.
Right.
So at this point, they're kind of like, well, we don't have any. I don't think he had any guns registered to him,
Yeah.
and I don't think the parents had guns in their home.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out, where the gun come from, and he said because he wanted to document the transaction of him giving the gun to Chandler, he took a photo of the serial number next to a photo of Chandler's driver's license.
Okay.
And then he also left him 400 rounds of ammunition.
Oh, just 400.
And they ended up being able to match. So this is the gun they ended up finding in the barn on that farm property by his dad's torso.
Yeah.
So they know his friend Andrew wasn't involved because he was in Texas at the time of the murders.
Right.
And they had ruled out Kat, his girlfriend, as having any involvement. She was not involved.
Right.
So just prior to the murders, Chandler's dad was starting to get on his case because Chandler wasn't getting paid.
Right.
And
he's like, come on, dude.
I'm sure, I don't know if he wanted rent or help with the bill or something. You know, Chandler was, what do we say, 24 or 23? So he's getting to that age
older.
where you know, want him to help out a little bit.
Right.
And he thinks he's in college.
Or they just want him to start building up so he can eventually move out.
Right.
You know, like build up your savings.
And Chandler's asking for money all the time, which is...
That's the other problem.
Yeah.
You need to have some of your
own
money at that age.
So in May of 2021, Chandler started telling people he got this job at SpaceX. He emails his girlfriend Kat, all excited, saying, I got the job.
Right.
And tells her he's going to go train the following week online.
Yep.
He tells Kat he got a new car and found them a place to live.
Oh.
And she was planning on going to Florida with Chandler.
Wow.
To move there with him.
Wow.
So in late June, he's supposed to supposedly start this new job at SpaceX, this non-existent job.
Right.
So right before that was going to happen, his brother Mitchell gets really sick and he's diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and he's actually hospitalized.
Oh.
Diabetes, not liabetes.
Real diabetes.
Yes.
That's too bad.
And to get diagnosed with that in your 20s is really unusual.
That's rough. Yeah.
Because type 1 diabetes, if you don't know, it's not caused by lifestyle changes. I know Laura knows this, but the people listening, it's typically... young children are diagnosed with it, and it has nothing to do with anything. It's like more of a genetic predisposition. Yeah, it's nothing to do. So to get it, he probably had it a lot of his life and just never knew.
No, right.
So he probably was very sick by the time they're realizing he's got it.
He has it. Yeah.
So Chandler uses his brother's hospitalization as an excuse to delay the start of this fictitious SpaceX job.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But then Mitchell...
It's very convenient for him time-wise.
Exactly, it was. Mitchell starts to recover.
Yeah.
And then a week after that, Chandler supposedly falls down the stairs, resulting in this neck injury.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
So Chandler was wearing a neck brace after that time. He told people, now listen, he tells people, Chandler does, that he's got a brain bleed, a hematoma, spinal damage. He needed to have his head drilled open.
What?
Couldn't use his legs, couldn't drive, nerve damage, and get this. He says he would need a colostomy bag. Which is not typically associated with a head injury. But
yeah, what kind of head injury requires a colostomy?
It's usually like colon cancer.
Unless you're paralyzed. You still wouldn't need you would need something. Not a colostomy bag necessarily, but...
I feel like most of the colostomy bags I've seen are as a result of colon cancer.
Right.
But
generally.
I mean, there are other things.
There are other, bad.
It's just an odd thing. He
obviously
Googled something,
right?
And that came up, and then he was he said, he just went off with that,
right?
To telling everybody that.
Don't you think his parents were a little suspicious?
Yeah, I do. I think that's how this all started.
If my kid came to me and said these were all his ailments, I'd be like, why aren't you in the hospital? Like,
Well, and then it's like, my thought is he's telling people he can't use
Hey.
his legs, but yet he's walking around.
right.
So, and he tells him he's unable to fly on an airplane, which of course then he can't go to Florida.
Right. That's what he's doing. He's trying to find reasons why he can't go to Florida and why he
Start
isn't
this
going to
job.
Florida and starting this job.
But then it's like, why did you tell people you got this job to begin with?
Right.
Because you knew that you did it. Like, that's the part that I don't understand.
Right.
Like, why not say you're having trouble finding a job or something?
Right. Well, because he's a sociopath, but like
Yeah.
bad. Like
Maybe the lying for him was a big part of his.
It isn't. He isn't even good at it.
Sociopathy.
Right, but he isn't even good at it.
No.
Is the
So
issue
apparently,
here.
when no one was looking, he did not wear the neck brace, and he appeared to be completely fine.
Oh.
They see Chandler on surveillance at a convenience store carrying bags of ice. Like, everything's great. He has no neck brace on. And actually, the neck brace totally disappears after July 1st, which we now know was the day of the homicides.
So he's like, I'm cured.
Yep. So he had told everyone he was due to graduate college. The reality is Chandler attended one semester and flunked out.
Oh.
So Chandler, they found this out after the fact, discovered emails between his parents where Bart said he had spoken to one of the advisors at the college that
Right.
Chandler had told him to call. But Bart says, the advisor on the phone sounded just like Chandler.
Oh.
So he had
He was-
burner phones
Right.
that he had his dad call to say, this is the advisor's number. And he got on the phone and pretended to be the college advisor.
I mean, you can tell your own kid's voice. I'm sorry.
Can you imagine? Hello?
Yeah. Hello. This is the advisor. You know.
So bad. I mean, this isn't funny, but the ridiculousness
Well-
is comical.
But I mean, how he went to those lengths.
It's so bizarre.
He purchased I mean, the lengths he went to, he could have done so much more with this time.
I know.
Jeez.
So there were hundreds of forged emails written by Chandler that he would forge to his dad, or forward to his dad, about his college classes and things, because his dad was starting to get suspicious.
Right.
And one of the things investigators noticed was that none of these emails were, because college has an EDU email address.
Right.
So none of these emails were coming from
An
an
EDU.
EDU, so they knew it wasn't from the college.
Right.
So on June 29th, about a day and a half before the murders, Bart called MATC, which was Chandler's college, pretending to be Chandler.
Oh, sure.
So his dad's calling because he's like, what is going on?
He's been, looking at all this, and he's
done.
He's done.
He knows
Yeah.
something isn't right. He knows Chandler's been lying to him.
Yeah.
So for 17 minutes, Bart talked to a real advisor,
Yep.
who informed him that they had no record of of Chandler attending classes for a couple of years.
Yeah, I bet he's like...
This call was recorded, so that's why they were able to listen to it after the fact.
Right.
So Bart texted Chandler saying, I talked to Omar Job, and Omar Job is a real advisor,
Yeah.
and this likely was the catalyst to the murders,
Right.
because now he knows the cat's out of the bag completely.
Right.
So on July 1st, Bart had scheduled a meeting with Chandler and someone from the college to once and for all figure out what was going on, because he knew that Chandler had attended some college.
Right.
So I
But
think
he's trying to figure out how much.
and I think Bart maybe thought, well, maybe the college maybe Chandler's lying, but maybe the college is a little bit
Off
their
and
records
something.
are off on
Right.
and
Right.
so we just need to sit down and
Talk
have
about
this
this.
meeting and figure
Right.
out what where the truth lies.
And how far are you exactly?
Right.
Maybe you're 1 year, maybe you're 2 years, maybe you're 3 years, like to figure out exactly where you're at so we can be done playing this and just
And I think part of the issue is they were obviously, I'm pretty sure his parents at the very least helped him pay for college.
Right.
So it's like where'd that
money
money go to? And I
Right.
think that was probably part of the reason he was so didn't want them to find out.
Right, because they had invested thousands and thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Right.
And somehow he probably, I'm guessing, got it, and this is conjecture completely, but maybe he got it in his name or they gave it to him directly to give to them, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that he actually maybe possibly pocketed that money.
Oh, I think that's a definite probability. Yeah. So Chandler felt like he couldn't admit this to his parents, and then that meeting is probably really what sealed his parents' fate, unfortunately.
Right.
I'm just going to tell a quick story, and this has nothing to do, I would never hurt my parents, I want to say that.
Well, and most people don't.
To preface this.
You deal with things. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like you...
But I can understand to a point of, so when I think I was 16 or 17, I worked at this department store called Herberger's in Rosedale Mall.
Right.
And there was a gal I worked with. Now, I was very young. I was 17. Right. And it was one of my first jobs. I think it was like my second job.
Yeah.
And one of the gals I worked with was like in her 30s. And you had to get a Herberger's credit card in order to work there.
Oh.
And which is weird, but that's every person. Yeah, and I think everyone got approved.
Right.
And maybe by that point I had turned 18. I'm not sure, but I was. Right. It was like a junior or senior in high school.
Yeah, you were.
So this coworker of mine, so we got a 20% discount, but the deal was you had to use your credit card to get the discount.
Right.
Because they would take it off the credit card bill.
Right.
So that people couldn't abuse the system.
Right.
So my friend tells me, or my coworker, I considered her a friend. She was significantly older than I was, but we got along.
Right.
She tells me, she's like, my credit card, the discount hasn't been coming off on my credit card. She shows me her credit card statement. I didn't honestly really look at it that closely, but,
right.
And she tells me, you just have to take the discount off manually at the register. Oh. And I was like, okay, I don't even think I really thought twice about it.
Right.
And you have to understand, we had a really loose policy with coupons. People would come in and not have the coupon, and we just give them the coupon.
Right.
Stuff like that. It was, the culture there was very much that way.
It was loose.
That
kind of thing.
So, this whole thing with her card, so she would get her employee discount, and then she would want a coupon on top of that discount.
Oh,
sure. And so by the time it was all said and done, she's getting 40-60% off of her purchases. Long story short, I ended up getting fired for giving her discounts because it was over a long period of time.
Oh, she would just come in and say that too.
Yes.
Was it just you or other people?
I think there were other people too.
Yeah.
And I was devastated, and I didn't want our parents to find out.
Right.
And in hindsight, it wasn't that big of a deal. It's not like this was... It was a job. I could have gotten another job, and I did.
Right.
But in the interim, after I got fired, I didn't want my parents to know. And I can understand that, that really deep feeling of, I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Right. How do I
So I didn't tell them right away, and I ended up pretending I was going to work, and then I would just go to my boyfriend's house at the time. But then, I don't know how long, it wasn't that long, they ended up calling Herberger's to the department I worked at, and then asked for me, and that because I was supposedly working that night.
Right.
And then the person that answered the phone said I didn't work there anymore.
Right.
And so I remember our dad actually got pretty mad, and he like he was like, okay, tomorrow morning you're getting up and going job hunting,
Right.
like first thing.
Right.
And I ended up getting a job like at the dollar store, like maybe 2 weeks later. So
Right.
it didn't even end up being
Right.
that big of a deal. But
still,
I can relate to that part, but never to the part where I mean, obviously his lies were much more profound
Right.
and elongated.
Right.
But
I bet it started, though, I get what you're saying, but I bet it started with one lie.
right.
And then it just, he had to tell
Compounded.
another and another and another and another to keep it going. But
Right.
why keep it going for that long? I mean, that was a long time, I bet. I bet it was years that he kept this going.
Yeah. And I still, his parents always supported him. They seemed like really nice, loving parents.
Right.
And even if he would have finally just broken down and said, look, maybe I'm a pathological liar, like I
Right.
have some kind of issue here.
Right.
And he just said, like, this is the truth. I
Right.
haven't been going to college. And college isn't for everybody.
No.
So,
it's not.
if it's not, just say, you know what, I know my brother is really good at college. I'm just not.
Right.
And get a job and figure out what you want to do with your life.
Right.
His parents probably would have been pretty mad initially.
Right.
But I think they would have gotten over it, and they
Yeah.
would have, maybe his dad would have said, hey, look, you need to give me half of the money you're making for a year to help pay back some of what you
Right.
stole
What
from
you
me.
right.
Or something like that.
Like they would have figured it out.
Right.
I
I mean,
they
I
would
think his
have-
parents had, his dad was an accountant and his mom
Right.
had a good job. I think they had a lot of good money.
Right. It would have been initially hard, but then, life would move on.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that, clearly this guy Chandler had an undiagnosed psychopathy or mental disorder.
Yeah.
Right, and definitely it had to do, I think sociopaths tend to lie a lot, so
Right.
it probably was something down that alley
Yes.
of diagnosis.
Yeah.
But to think that your only solution to this problem is to kill them is just outrageous.
It
I
is.
don't get
It
that
is.
part of it. So anyhow, so what they think happened was once Chandler became aware of his dad setting up this meeting, that's when he's like, well, his dad texted him and was like, I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Right.
And that's when he ambushed his dad and ended up shooting him in the back. So they know that Bart was shot in the back, so likely he didn't even see it coming.
Right.
He just shot him in the house.
Yeah. He was just quick and...
And then his mom was not home at that time, so then after he shoots his dad,
Oh.
he texts his mom and he tells his mom, quote, Dad's phone died,
Right.
so text or call me. And he says, get soda on your way home.
What?
And then his mom texts back, okay, I can, with a smiley face.
Oh. What a nice mom, though.
I
mean,
know.
Even though she's suspecting him of all these bad things, because I'm sure, you know what I
She
mean, they
knew,
talk,
yeah.
She knew. She's still, okay, I'll pick up your pop.
Yeah. So Krista pulls in the driveway just after 5 p.m. because there's a neighbor surveillance.
Yeah.
And she is never heard from again.
Oh.
At 5:11 p.m., Chandler creates a list on his iPhone using the Notes app with
Right.
all of his weekend chores.
Right.
So she gets home at 5. He's making this list at 5:11. So
Right.
he shot her like right when she walked through the door.
Right.
So his weekend chores were get H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide, lemon, door handles, remove your crap upstairs, get a job, clean the floor. He then gets in the shower and FaceTimes his girlfriend while he's in the shower. He goes and buys some large bags of ice to put his and then puts his parents in the freezers inside the house.
Oh.
He goes and buys saw blades, an axe, and a hand saw to dismember them.
See, I will say, I think that dismembering people is a lot more difficult than people think it is.
Yeah, I hear that a lot too.
Yeah, like I think it requires, like they think, oh, this is just going to be easy, just cut them up and throw. It isn't. It isn't.
Well, and I know we've never discussed this case, but the Taylor Shabusiness case.
Yes.
That's what's baffling to me about that one, and
Yes.
we may do that
How
one.
fast
She did it. She dismembered a guy like with regular kitchen knives.
Right, just regular
So that
knives we all have in our kitchen
something
block
was
thing.
very strange.
Yes, very bizarre. How is that possible?
This is even weirder. So Chandler planned to burn his parents' remains in the family fireplace.
Oh.
So on July 1st, neighbors noticed smoke coming from the family fireplace, which they thought was really strange because it was July.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin in
We're gonna have a
July. We
regular
live in
July
Minnesota.
fire,
Yeah. So it's just as hot there as it is here. And
Right.
we have really hot summers, contrary to what you might think.
Right.
It's in the 90s in July often.
Yes.
One of the neighbors thought it smelled like a pig roast, so he just kind of went with that.
They're just like, they're just having a pig roast. Okay.
And the neighbor's surveillance actually captured a bright glowing light, and then suddenly the lights went out.
Okay.
And what happened was the fire ended up getting out of control due to the human fat, and Chandler had to pour water on the fire to get it to calm down.
Okay.
And then a glass panel on the fireplace was shattered. And then, so investigators found multiple pieces of human bone that were found in the ash trap of the fireplace.
Okay.
And then they have a record of Chandler purchasing the tarp on July 2nd. And girlfriend Kat was supposed to spend the night. And on her way over, Chandler asked her if she could bring her Swiffer.
Oh.
Because he told her he cut his toe.
Oh.
So he needed that. And then on July 3rd...
To pick up the blood? Or like...
Well, yeah, to clean up.
Oh.
But this is the odd thing. So his girlfriend spends the night on July 2nd at their house.
And she supposedly didn't know?
She didn't know anything. And then she left on July 3rd at 7 a.m. I think she had to work.
Then he's like, resume operation.
Yep. And then he left to go to the dump.
Oh.
But the dump was closed because it was the 4th of July weekend.
Right.
So that's when he ended up driving down to the Wisconsin River to scatter Krista's remains. So I think his initial plan had something to do with the dump.
Right.
But then he had to abandon that plan.
It sounds like he had a lot of different plans. Like he started with a plan and they just kept not working correctly.
I think so too.
Because it's a lot harder than you think. This is like, 300-400 pounds or more.
Yeah, his parents were not, they weren't huge, but they were like not small people either.
Right. So say, 400 plus pounds of human. That's a lot to get rid of 400 pounds or so, you know what I mean? Or more or less or whatever.
Yeah. So on July 4th, he goes to the farm with Kat. So he did some more cleaning up, and then on the 3rd, and then on the 4th, he goes to the farm to spend the 4th with her family. He sends himself that text message from his mom about the parade and stuff. And then he goes to a firework party with his friends as if everything is fine. On July 5th, he had told Kat's parents that he had went to the doctor, but he actually never went to the doctor.
Yeah.
And then, of course, right around the 6th and 7th of July, multiple people started inquiring about his parents' whereabouts because at that time they had stopped showing up for work.
Right.
So he knew he had to get things done before...
by a certain period of time.
Right, because he knew people were going to start asking questions.
Yes.
So Chandler Halderson was arrested on July 8th of 2021.
Yeah.
Initially just for filing false information on a missing person.
Okay.
And then they added the murder charges once they...
had all the evidence.
Yep, I had everything worked out. And then in March of 2022, Chandler Halderson was found guilty of killing his parents and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Right.
And that's pretty much where the story ends. But, yeah, that's what he did.
That's really, it's sad and unfortunate. Very preventable.
And just to me, they sound, because I've seen a lot of different things on this case, and they seem like the nicest people.
Right.
And it's like, for him to think that there was no other way out, it just, there had to have been some kind of more of like a desire to kill beyond
the normal. Yeah.
Just kind of like, well, I'm in this bad situation, and maybe he's always had some kind of weird psychopathic
tendencies
or something. Because there has to be the pathological lying lying is always a choice, but like the way that he made up lies that made things worse for himself.
Right.
That's part of what was so mind blowing. You're like, why?
Or I mean, was he a true sociopath or just somebody who literally made up lie after lie because he literally did not want to work?
But then that's the strange thing is the first thing he says after his parents are murdered, he's got that list, and he's like, get a job is one of the first things he says. So he knows
he needs to, but he just didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't want to work, he didn't want to go to school. So in order to and then he got money from his parents. That's how he had to fund his life, you know.
But then his girlfriend, like, you tell your girlfriend, like, we're moving to Florida. So she totally uproots her life thinking, we're moving to Florida. And, like...
But he didn't have to go that far.
You know? That's what I'm saying.
That's what it is. But he had to tell his parents something. Maybe he was planning to go to Florida and just start over, but with what money?
And apparently, you know, he's telling everyone SpaceX is, you know, if you worked for SpaceX, you'd be making a pretty penny.
Yeah.
So he's telling all these people that he's going to be making all this money. So the places that he
do that?
Like Kat was going online looking at like real estate in Florida, and she was looking at like $1 million houses,
thinking he's going to be making just a
ton of money. And he's the one that made it seem that way.
Right.
So anyhow, that's a terrible story of and then I feel so bad for his brother Mitchell.
Yes.
Because he was about to get married and his parents missed all of that. And
it's very sad. And he's the last surviving member of the
because
family.
now his brothers and you go like literally he went from June 30th to having a family of 4.
Right.
To on July 9th, his parents are dead and his brother's in jail.
Right.
I mean,
so
that's...
Basically, he's the last... Well, no, he isn't the last surviving. The brother's in jail, but he's the last
family member
that's
freely in society.
Yes.
So it's a terrible story.
It's very sad. And oddly, there's another case, a very, very similar, that happened, and I can't remember the name, and I'd have to look it up, but there was a very similar case that occurred where, again, the brother did not want to have to tell the parents that he flunked out of college. And it was, he ended up killing the mother and the brother, and the dad survived.
Do you remember where that was?
I can't remember.
Was it in Idaho?
No, it might have, but no. I'd have to look it up. I want to say it was in the east somewhere, but it was very similar circumstance in that it was he told his parents he had graduated college, right? He said, "Oh, I graduated," and he had not actually graduated.
You know what's strange?
What
is? Sometimes I listen to Nancy Grace. Okay, I'm going to confess this.
Yes.
Even though I think she's a wacko, but she's kind of just makes me laugh because she's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, the top mom, we got the Jarrars. Yeah. Anyway, this 10 Jarrars. I can't even. Yeah. Jarrars. I can't even do her accent, so I apologize for that. Anyhow, she had a case recently on where a girl faked her own kidnapping
Yeah.
because she was supposed to graduate from Penn State
Oh, sure.
and was lying
Oh,
to everybody.
right.
And she hadn't been in college for like an entire year. So she was working at a Sonic. She was like 21
Yeah.
and disappeared after her shift, and everybody thought she had been kidnapped.
Right.
And it was this whole big search for her and everything. And then she ends up popping up like a few blocks away from home and tries to convince them she had been kidnapped.
Oh,
But they ended up figuring out that she had lied about college.
Yeah. So it's this thing, this problem in society. I don't know what you'd want to call it, but where kids are, having trouble in college and somehow can't face it. They can't face how to move forward from that. The disappointing their parents, friends, whoever.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, that's something that society might need to think about a little bit. If you say, okay, even if you fail,
yeah, you have to
we'll
have
still
and you have to, if your kid
love
goes
you.
to college, that has to be because that's what they want to do and that
Right.
they're motivated to do it.
Right.
It can't just be you're doing this because it's my
Because-
expectation of you.
Right, because you have to go to college. You know what I mean?
It's like I don't care what my kids do as long. I mean, they're gonna have to work,
Right.
or
right.
they're gonna have to go to school, or a
something.
combination of the two.
Something. Yeah.
But, and I'm not talking about like a kid with a disability is a different
Right.
situation, but like, I'm
General.
not gonna say like, for example, like my oldest son is a really good artist, and I always joke I want him to be a forensic sketch artist.
Yeah.
But I would never push something on him if like
No.
he really doesn't want to do that.
Right.
I mean, I joke about it, but
Right.
I honestly like want him to do whatever makes him happy.
Right.
But I don't know, to me
There is some kind of pressure there. Well, and a lot of them are, in these cases, it sounds like they are siphoning money out of their parents,
right, and they're using that money because they're not wanting to work, but
or whatever, not wanting to work much or whatever the situation is. But there's got, I don't know. And then parents should be questioning too, to kind of like, why are you giving your kids this money in cash or check directly to them?
right, you should be paying the
You
school.
should be paying the school. Like there's so I feel like there
And-
is a societal issue.
I think this girl was actually in nursing school and she had failed out.
Right.
And so it was like she was I don't know, probably partially embarrassed.
Right.
But I guess for me it would just be like making sure and of course hindsight is 2020.
Right.
You can be a Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
It's a very easy thing to do.
Yep.
But just maybe like every semester touching base with your kid and saying, are you still doing okay?
Right.
And having a conversation beforehand saying, look, if things start going badly and you're not understanding, you're having trouble in your classes, you hate it,
Right.
no harm, no foul if it's just one semester
Right.
and you tried it and you hated it.
And you hate it, just stop,
And be done
just
with it.
Be done.
And
Yeah.
make sure they know, like, I'm not going to have bad feelings towards you because
Right.
of this or something like that. But
Right.
that intense, and I'm not blaming the parents, but the
No.
intense pressure is a problem.
Right. And some of it too is in both cases I do believe they had older siblings or younger, other siblings who were successful.
Yeah, that's probably.
And so that's part of the pressure, I think, as well, is them wanting to keep, and then the parents being proud of that other sibling. Do you know
Right,
what I
and they
mean?
want that
and they want
same-
that as well. So it's, even if they aren't doing college and they're doing something else, I guess it's still showing your pride,
Yeah.
to that child. So it's hard. That's
I guess with the Chandler story, too, it's like, what did he think? Like, so they
Right.
can't find his parents' bodies.
right.
And so they can't arrest him. Did he just think he was just gonna I think they had life insurance.
Right. It may have been because that's how he wanted to fund his further lifestyle. But I think mostly it boils down to he just wanted it to be
He clearly had an issue with
over. He didn't want to. He couldn't explain his lies anymore.
Part of the narcissism and the sociopathy, though, is not being able to take responsibility for your actions.
Right.
So he clearly didn't learn that ever for some reason.
Right.
And so for him to have to say, like, look, I really screwed up. I really have a problem.
Right.
I don't think,
He could.
and I'm not making excuses for him, but I don't think he was capable of that.
Right. No.
Because to him, that was just like
something he couldn't do.
He couldn't do. And there are
Right.
people scary that are like that.
Oh, yeah. There definitely are.
Like if you're...
There's a certain percent of the population that is.
And that's the problem, too. And I'm not blaming his parents, but there are parents that kind of are like, well, my kids can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And they put them on a pedestal, and then when they do screw up, they don't...
The kid can't handle it.
Right.
Because they don't...
They've never been told the truth, and so they've been, the parent gets them out of the situation or whatever,
and now they can't handle
instead of making them like learn the lesson from whatever it was. So maybe he was a bit babied by
it's hard to
the
say.
Mom. I had heard that.
That and it is. I mean, you can't blame her, but at the same time, you know what I mean? There's got to be it was preventable in a lot of different aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could happen to anyone is the other thing is,
Yeah, that's a terrible...
It's another, it could happen.
But
even anyone. Like... And we can't judge, but we can say what could have been, how could this have been prevented?
Well, and that's the reason that talking about this kind of stuff is important, just for that. Like, in retrospect, how could this have been prevented?
Right.
And, yeah, it's definitely not a subject that... It's something you hear about from time to time.
Yeah.
But it's not something that people really ever raise as, like, a societal problem that needs to be addressed.
Right.
So, I've never really heard it discussed in that light.
No, me neither. Oh.
So...
Well, anyways, thank you for listening and hearing our thoughts.
Our bleak story.
Our bleak thoughts and our bleak commentary and story.
But tell a friend, because we'd love to do this full time
and
be hundreds of thousandaires.
Yes. There we go. You never know.
Yep.
You never know.
This could just take off. So far it has not, but...
Hey, that's okay.
I'm
still working hard at my regular job, living the dream. I love my job.
Yeah, we're going to just keep plugging away.
I do. But this is fun, too.
But if I could just do this once a week and make lots of money, that would be great, too.
I think that's a great aspiration.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys soon. And
thank you. Thanks for listening.
We're going to try to come out with more episodes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will.
Love you. Bye.
Okay, bye.